Voting is underway in Namibia. This is after the Electoral Commission announced an extension by 2 days. The Commission says this is to allow those who could not vote a chance to cast their ballots. Logistical issues, including problems with the electronic tablets used to check voters' identities and insufficient ballot papers, left crowds still queuing until the early hours of yesterday. Let's now get an update from freelance journalist Ester Mbathera, who is joining us now from Namibia. Esther, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tell us what the queues are looking like this morning, considering that on Wednesday was the first day of voting. It was supposed to have been the only day of voting, and this weekend perhaps maybe preparations around vote counting, but that has now also been delayed.
Yes, good morning. Today, actually, the extension was only given for certain polling stations, so it's not the whole country that will be able to cast their votes. It's only certain polling stations. That was the explanation given last night. So, like, for instance, in the capital city in Windhoek, where I am now, there's only one polling station, and that polling station is supposed to open early this morning from 7, and it will be open until 9 o'clock. However, as per the rule is whoever is in the queue just 1 minute before 9 o'clock, they can still be helped. But as we speak also, there's a lot of questions about the legality of this extension, because according to the Electoral Act, the extension is supposed to have been granted at least 15 days before the voting. So there's a lot of legal minds that are talking about it as to how unlawful this whole process is. This morning, we received a proclamation from the presidency that the election can now go ahead. Also, the Act speaks to the proclamation should have been issued at least 15 days before the election date. So, but the ECN is last night was insistent that it is a continuation of the elections. The queues here in Windhoek, it has started to grow longer and longer. So in the morning when we got here around 6:30, there were about 60 people, but now there's more than about 300 people that are already queuing up.
Yeah, and speaking about this issue around the proclamation of having 2 additional days to the election and what the law says around this, what are the opposition saying around a call for a fresh election instead of an extension?
Last night, the Affirmative Repositioning Party, which is a party led by young people, they were actually asking for a fresh election, either in January or in February. But the other opposition parties haven't yet proclaimed themselves on the matter. So, but they did indicate that they will have a press briefing around 9 o'clock this morning. So we will be headed towards that, towards the halls where they will have this meeting. But so hopefully they will be able to tell us what is the plan or the way forward. Because yesterday they also had meetings at the ECN building, but they were all just talking about how they are planning on approaching the courts on the matter, but they didn't yet do anything around it. They haven't yet approached the courts. They were just discussing on their way forward. But we suspected that they are exhausting all avenues so that by the time they get to court, they have everything. They have exhausted all avenues as to how to deal with the ECN.
Yeah. Have you heard anything as yet from the political party that is represented by one of the front runners, Dr. Itula? Because if you consider what happened back in 2019, they were willing to take whatever concerns that they had with the elections to court, the court finding in their favor, of course, and this was in relation to having a paper trail when it comes to the elections, which is in place this time around. And I wonder if they would be heading to the courts this time again, now over the concerns around the application and also the insistence by the president to have this declaration and the 2 additional days.
Yeah, no, the Independent Patriots for Change haven't really proclaimed themselves on the issue, but they were also together with other opposition parties yesterday. They held meetings on plans and how to go forward. However, on Wednesday evening, they actually did issue a statement from their lawyers, but in that statement, they were also just threatening that they will go to court if the ECN doesn't listen to them. But what was also happening is that the ECN all along was, we understand that political parties, including the media, has been trying to engage them. However, they were not listening to anybody. Last night they held an impromptu media briefing, and luckily we were on site, just sitting around in the hall. And to our surprise, we just saw people walking in, and they started talking and explaining things, because the national broadcaster is actually live 24 hours. So they were using the national broadcaster. So unfortunately, most of the journalists were still around, and we were able to ask all the questions. But from the opposition parties, nothing about approaching the courts has happened. Neither has the Independent Patriot for Change really proclaimed themselves on the matter. So hopefully by today, as I said earlier, by today, because they are having a press briefing, which is now all the other opposition parties, they will have a press briefing now at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, from that press briefing...
But
no, you can go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, but what we also have, most of the parties are calling for a national protest around the elections to declare the election null and void and have a fresh elections. This call actually also came from the affirmative repositioning. The NEFF of Namibia has also called for that.
Yeah. So what happens to vote counting in the meantime, and for all of the other people who have cast their ballots? What's known about where their ballots are, as you stressed right at the beginning of our conversation, is that it's not all polling stations that are opened. It is just selected polling stations where this two-day voting will be taking place. What happens to vote counting?
No, vote counting continues. The numbers have been trickling in already since yesterday, and even this morning we have seen a lot of vote counting, vote numbers coming through. But the ECN hasn't started to update its platforms as to how many people have voted already, because they have a platform, a cadastre, where one could see how the votes are going, but they haven't updated those. What we are only seeing is the pictures that are taken at the polling station, because the rule here is that once a polling station is closed, the officials have to count the ballots, and they have to put the results up at the polling station. They have to paste it there, and it has to remain there. Yeah. So what we have been seeing is just pictures that are being circulated.
Yeah. And then in terms of the announcement of the election results, was the Electoral Commission clear on when that could possibly happen? Also considering, of course, that you have these 2 additional days for voting at the selected polling stations.
The initial date was set for the 30th of November, but last night they didn't indicate as to when they will declare the official results. So we are still in the dark on that. So we're hopeful that if they have another press briefing today, we'll be able to get answers in that regard.
Yeah. And finally, from some of the observers of the elections, are they saying that they have found any foul play at all, or has it been a smooth elections? And this is in spite of course, the voting ballots or the ballot papers that were in short supply, as well as the technical glitches with that machine that is used to identify voters.
No, the observers haven't said anything as yet. They have been quiet, but they have invited us for a press briefing today at 11 o'clock, which I will also be able to attend. However, on Wednesday, those that we have met, they were indications that they only found, because a lot of the polling stations were quite small, where you couldn't even fit 2 voters in, because already the tables for the voting was taking up space. And then they also had concerns about the booths, because there was only 1 booth per polling station, which they also found a bit odd, because that was making the voting process a bit longer. But some areas, they didn't really pick up anything to tell us if there's anything wrong with the elections and so on. But hopefully they will be able to give us an update as to what they have seen so far. Because remember also, the country is vast. You can actually travel up to 130 kilometers without seeing anybody or anything. And so they have been traveling all over. So we hopefully by 11 o'clock, they will be able to give us an update.
Ester Mbathera there joining us from Namibia.